it eats away at the core of my soul to know that I can't stop every young person from going down this path that will lead to despair, if not ultimately their demise. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and I am so glad you are back here with me again this week. If you are new here and this is the first time you are seeing my face, welcome. I make weekly videos dissecting internet nonsense, so if you're into that type of thing or you like today's video, I hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel and make sure you never miss another upload from me. Before we jump into today's video, I'm gonna go ahead and just pause for a second. It feels like I'm having to do this more frequently now, but I'm gonna go ahead and offer a content warning. If you're not in a good headspace to talk about chronic or serious illness, people passing away, sometimes suddenly, chronic obesity, but also feederism, please go ahead and just click out of today's video. There are plenty of other fun videos that you can watch on the channel, but unfortunately today's video is going to have to be a little bit more serious than normal. We've got some things we've got to talk about. It was not that long ago that we sat down here together on the channel to talk about the unfortunate passing of 4 plus-size people, 3 influencers and celebrities, and 1 normal girl whose parents could not move her body out of their house due to her physical size and weight. Each of these stories hits me so hard, and honestly, just like they hit me in the core of my soul. This never gets easier for me to do, to bring these stories to the channel and to talk about things like this, but I feel called to do it. I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that these things don't get buried along with these people who are passing away, because we know the movements that they considered community are not going to acknowledge this in any real meaningful way. And the movements that these people follow, like fat activism and fat liberation and body positivity, they're never going to acknowledge them, nor the harm that their movements are bringing to these people. And I've set this video up a little bit differently today because 2 things were happening for me simultaneously. And I'll be honest, I was like, this is very fascinating to watch these 2 things happen at the same time. So before we get to the feature story, what I want to talk about first is this story that's been circulating recently about a 24-year-old Chinese mukbanger who apparently passed away on live stream from a stomach explosion. And then they're reporting that her autopsy report showed that she had deformities and undigested food in her system. Maybe it's the history nerd in me, I have no idea, but I am so highly skeptical of everything I see online these days. And I am never going to bring something to this channel without fully vetting it. Plus, as you all know, when something interests me and I am thinking about bringing it to the channel, I go deep, I am nosy, I am thorough. So I look and I searched and I searched and I searched, because if this woman had actually been a famous mukbanger, a famous content creator, a famous live streamer, there would be some trace of her on the internet, be it screenshots, archived videos or live streams, an Instagram or a TikTok. I searched and there was nothing. Not a trace at all. And to me, that was immediately weird, because apparently this person had died on live stream. And I was being expected to believe that that wasn't archived somewhere out there to be found. Now, I see tons of people, there's tons of comments and rhetoric around China and how they can suppress things very differently than what we're used to seeing here in the Americas. And while I get what's being said, I am not the type of person who just is going to take someone's word for it that the Chinese government was able to get rid of her entire online presence. It's just a very hard thing for me to believe and just take as fact. And it was somewhat validating to that point to actually learn that this is not the first time a Chinese influencer has passed away doing a dumb internet challenge. Just last year in 2023, there were actually 2 big stories that had come out about Chinese TikTok influencers passing away. The first was a man who drank multiple bottles of alcohol on TikTok Live. He passed away shortly after his live stream. And the other story was about a Chinese woman who passed away trying to lose half her body weight, or 100 kilograms, by attending very rigorous workout camps. These 2 stories about Chinese influencers were coming out of China and were being reported by news sites like CNN, where they included video footage and photos of the TikTok creators who had passed. And that made me realize the only place I had been seeing this article about this 24-year-old mukbanger had been on clickbait sites. There are no reputable news sources covering this story. That then led me to looking at the photos that were being included with these articles that were being posted. Because, again, if this person were real and if this story were real, the photos should lead me back to this creator. Then I noticed that most of the articles were using the same 3 photos over and over again. And if you look at the faces in these photos, they're not the same person. They're all Asian faces, but they're not of the same woman. There are at least 4 different women shown here, and you can tell that by looking at their facial features. Some have narrower chins or fuller lips. Plus, the photos also had these weird blurs on them, or the face was just blurred out or cut off altogether, which made the story even more questionable to me. So I took these images and I started doing some reverse image searches, because again, if this were a real influencer, then it should pull something up, whether it be an Instagram, a TikTok, a YouTube. She should be kind of identifiable. And as I was searching, all of the images were coming up with nothing. And then finally, I got a hit on the last one. This photo pulled up an influencer named Yang Subin, a Korean influencer who is known for her mukbang content, but she recently surprised her followers with staggering weight loss in 2022. She does still make mukbang style content, though on a much smaller scale, because it's taken a backseat to her fitness content. That's right, she's a fitness influencer now. These news stories and news outlets were stealing her content and misrepresenting her as a Chinese mukbanger. And the Daily Mail, who apparently likes to be a repeat offender, has actually stolen her content before, and I'm gonna put the clip in here because I bet if you saw it, you would recognize her from this video, because it does make the rounds every few years.
엄지는 또 이렇게 맞춰서 머리를 잘 맞게 이렇게 어머머머 이렇게
After all of this digging and finding this other influencer whose content had been stolen, I had thoroughly convinced myself that this article was fake. And I hate feeling like I'm putting my peers on blast here, because I saw this article being talked about all over YouTube. I saw it on TikTok. I even saw it posted across a couple of subreddits. It was absolutely everywhere. And in my brain, I could not figure out why I'm seeing all of these videos. Everything is coming out and all of these sites are posting about it, but not a single person had additional information. They were all just parroting the same talking points over and over again. There was nothing new. And to me, that's unusual, right? Because typically people are nosy and they're going to dig and they're going to see what they can find. And in this case, that had not happened. Then, the one and only Michelle McDaniel posted a YouTube short where she had video clips that matched one of the women whose images had been used by the article. And I was immediately taken aback. I was like, oh, this is the first time we're seeing video of this person. Could this be real? And then the search was back on. Your girl dug and dug and dug to find out whose video this was and if this was actually the person that they were saying passed away. But I kept coming up short because if you're unaware, it's very, very difficult to look for things that are not in your native language. I spent a lot of time using Google Translate on my phone, scanning my computer, trying to read text and look for context clues. And I was coming up with absolutely nothing. But what happened after that is the algorithm gods blessed me with a Chinese TikToker who was also looking to figure out if this story was real. I'm going to go ahead and share a clip from her TikTok. She goes by Cece, and I'm going to warn you all, she has a very adorable cat. You're just going to want to stare at the cat the whole time. Please make sure you're listening to what she's saying because this is very important.
24 years old young Chinese influencer who died during mukbang live streaming on Douyin. This news not only went viral on Chinese social media, but I keep seeing the same news went viral on TikTok. So as Chinese, I have to fact check it because I use Chinese TikTok Douyin very frequently, and I also love to watch some mukbang video, but I have never heard about this influencer ever before. So this is one of the articles that I find on the Western side, and the pictures in use are actually from another Chinese influencer. This is her page, and she is in fact still alive and just got pregnant. And I also check other English language articles, but most of the picture used are either fake or borrowed from other influencers. And same thing happened on the Chinese social media as well. There are many articles about this news, but none of them are posted by official. And the photos of that allegedly influencer are just all fake photos. So I'm not sure if this thing actually really happened or it's just a fake news.
So there we have it. In my mind, this is case closed, a fake article. And I say that because now we know they've stolen images from a Korean influencer and at least 2 other influencers, including this woman who is a mukbanger but is very much alive. But for me, this poses a bigger question. Why was this misinformation or disinformation being created in the first place? And who was it targeting is what I'm most interested in, because the thing that happened that we saw, and again, I feel terrible. I feel like I'm putting people on blast here, but how was this article able to dupe so many creators and so many critical thinkers? And here's why I ask these questions, because by now we all know that there's no shortage of life lost coming out of these plus-size communities online, be it fat activism, fat liberation, body positivity, the feederism community. They all have led people to early deaths. There really is not a need to make something like this up, because at the exact same time that this was happening, it's coming to light that someone actually did pass away, likely from complications due to obesity, though that's not been officially confirmed for us to know. And this is where you're going to sense a little bit of a tone shift from me, because while it was fun to figure out if that article was real or not, only to figure out it was clickbait, we're actually switching into a story that is not clickbait. It is the true story of a person who wanted to exist in these online safe spaces only to lose her life. And her story is important because not only does it highlight the real devastating impact that unchecked weight gain can have, it's also a story about the dangers of online exploitation. Her name was Cassandra, and she was 29 years old. Cassandra was known online as Casss the Blast across her social media platforms. She was known for posting her plus-size modeling content and even sharing with her audiences that she was a chubby child who was told she would never model. But she would use her platforms to prove those people wrong, because now in this new online world, she could be a plus-size model. She often posted content about how she gained her own confidence and how she wanted to help others learn to love their bodies. While I wouldn't classify Casss as a fat activist, their talking points certainly made their way into her content, with her saying things like this.
I'm here trying to be a representation that you can be fat and happy and healthy.
As I looked through Cass's content to make this video, it appears to me that as her social media platforms grew, she was starting to target new audiences. And we can see that because she starts to use the hashtag BBW on more and more of her content. Whether she was looking for it or not intentionally, this would become her descent into the darkness that is feederism. Her content would begin to look a little bit different at this point, with her starting to promote more and more BBW bashes, sharing her travels where she stayed with men, and promoting that other women join a Discord for one man's plus-size paradise. When you look through content this way, right after something has happened, it's very interesting to see the contrast between Cass when she first started posting on TikTok back in 2020 with what her posts looked like in this new era of her content, and especially towards the end of her content. When you lay the videos side by side, it's so staggering to see how much weight she gained in such a short period of time. And her content would also continue to change in that she was becoming more and more silent, often posting photos to music or lip syncing to TikTok sounds. This makes sense when we think about rapid weight gain and the things that we know it does to people as far as shortness of breath. I also found 2 posts on the Fat Admirer subreddit that have since been removed from 2 people who claimed to either be friends with or roommates with Cass in these last few years of her life. One shared, "I knew Cass personally and can say unequivocally that this lifestyle killed her. I know because I saw it. I know because we were the ones who watched her stand up and gasp for breath as she took 2 steps to move to the restroom. I know because we were there and heard her gasping for breath as she slept." The other post confirmed what this first post said, stating, "She was funny and kind, but it was my first time seeing what feederism can do to someone who's already at risk. I can confirm that she slept too long, had sleep apnea, and was also bleeding uncontrollably every day. She scared me into losing 40 pounds myself." Cass's life had been taken over by this newfound community. And it was at this point that I learned that Cass, outside of her social media platforms that were public, also had a very lucrative OnlyFans. And she used her OnlyFans to sell eating videos to people, to talk to and travel to see men to make money in this way, and also traveled to see and meet up with other plus-size models. One that I noticed quite a bit on her Instagram before it was privated was Mary Bowberry, who you might recognize because her content has been featured on this channel before when it was also stolen by the Daily Mail. When news broke that Cass had passed away, it was clear that it had hit certain parts of her community and certain peers that she had had really hard, with them posting photos or memorial videos on their platforms. It was through these posts that I had learned that Cass was away from home when this had happened. She had been traveling for work and she had passed away in her hotel room, and her family was actually hosting a GoFundMe to raise enough money to bring her body back so that she could be buried. It appears her family was successful and they were able to bring her home so that she could be buried. And I only really know that because her family did post little bits and pieces of her funeral and some of the memorial that they did on TikTok. And I'm not going to lie to you, these things are always incredibly hard for me. I cried like a baby watching those things. It is so clear to me that her family is so devastated. Watching her parents cry and hearing the sobs from family and friends in the background is almost too much to bear. This never gets easier for me, and it eats away at the core of my soul to know that I can't stop every young person from going down this path that will lead to despair, if not ultimately their demise. Just as Cass built her content to help plus-size women find confidence, I built my content and started this channel to help people start to think critically about these movements and what they lead to. Because while it's true that body positivity and fat liberation and fat acceptance all sort of started as their own things and were very distinct, it is so clear, especially in these online communities, that those lines are no longer distinct. They're very blurred. And what ends up happening is that these communities often lead to darker realities that exist just beyond their surface. Cass was clearly a young woman who had listened to enough of the fat acceptance and fat liberation and body positivity rhetoric that she thought she could be fat and healthy, that she was duetting Tess Holliday, and even using their sounds in her content. It really bothers me that despite all of these things we're seeing and this trend of plus size influencers and celebrities passing away has changed nothing. There are still fat activists on these platforms very openly claiming that there are no health risks that come with being obese. And worse, in my opinion, is that there are men out there waiting in the wings to take advantage of these very vulnerable women who are likely struggling with body image issues despite their very confident online personas. As I close today's video, I kind of want to try to wrap everything up in a little bow here and make some broader connections. I think the reason the mukbanger story went as wide as it did and got so many people is because we're honestly hitting a point where it's really difficult to tell fact from fiction, especially when it comes to this fat community online. And that's because, as I said, they're either literally leading people to their own demise by spreading misinformation, or to terrible men who want to take advantage of them. And neither of those things are things that they should be proud of, and yet somehow, despite all of the loss, we're still here. And I'm unsure who else has flagged this out there, but I certainly have, and I've been keeping tabs on it. But over the last year, we have had so many people come out of this community that Cass was a part of to talk about the dangers. Two creators who come immediately to mind are Quirky Love Rose and 599 to Damn She's Fine. Both were able to escape before it was too late, and both have been telling stories about how living in these spaces almost took their lives. As far as I'm concerned, there is much more to this story, but it's not necessarily Cass's story. So I'm gonna go ahead and split the two up, but I need you guys to know I'm not gonna stop digging into this, and we are indeed going to talk about it another day. So I hope that you will join me, because there was so much here, especially in this man that Cass had been both promoting and kind of protecting on her platform. We're going to get into that a little bit, so I hope you'll join me. All right, that is all I have for you today officially. At this point, I'm curious to know at least what you think about the mukbanger story. Did you fall for that story, or were you like me and you were highly skeptical and trying to figure out if it was true or not? I am genuinely curious to know about that. And as far as Cass's story, I'm not going to ask any questions today because that feels extremely insensitive to me. But what I want to do instead is just remind you to stay safe in these online spaces and constantly be vigilant of the things you're being told, especially things you're being told to believe. I'm a person who believes that you should question everything, and you should think about who you're listening to and what their motives are for giving you that message. It's our duty to ourselves to make sure that we don't let ourselves, as much as we can, because we all fall into rabbit holes and we all fall into things we shouldn't have. But we need to do our due diligence to try to keep ourselves out of situations that will be extremely harmful for us or bad for our mental health or lead us to our own demise. Thank you all so much for being here with me this week. I will see you in the next one.